Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. We just finished up with the Emerging Civil War 2024 Symposium. So after a long day of talking about Civil War history, listening to Civil War history, and conversating with some of the best historians in the world, I'm ending the day here at Spotsylvania. Let's go. Here at Spotsylvania Courthouse Battlefield, and you got some interpretive plaques here that looks like they're doing some work here to those. And this is talking about the battle here in Spotsylvania. This is going to be 2 days of vicious fighting that was going to take place in the wilderness, and the enemies are going to move south towards Spotsylvania Courthouse. And the Union Army is going to march along this road in front of us, Brock Road. And the Confederates are going to use a series of paths and roads farther to the west. And for both sides, it became a miserable march here to this area. They were deprived of sleep. They had just been in non-stop combat. They're in sweat-soaked uniforms. And now they've got to go down these narrow, dusty, dirty roads. And in many places, the roads were on fire from all of the battles that has been going on. And the air, because of that, is going to be filled with smoke. So you can see a depiction of that here, men marching through the smoke on their way here. And they're going to have no relief. Union soldiers are going to approach the courthouse here in Spotsylvania, and they're going to learn that the Confederates are going to hold the ridge that is going to be 1/4 mile ahead of us. And the Federals are going to repeatedly attack it, but could not drive the Confederates from it. And what had started as a race to Spotsylvania now is going to end on a struggle for this village. And this is going to be a very, very deadly battle here. And this is going to occur in May of 1864. And Union troops are going to charge across these fields from the right and left in the effort to break the Confederate Army's hold to the wooded ridge. It's just going to be on our left-hand side here. And with each repulse, Union soldiers' enthusiasm for the attacking ridge will diminish. Every man in the ranks will see the folly of the attempt. And a soldier wrote about this in the 83rd Pennsylvania Volunteers. He said, and judging from the undercurrent of their conversation, it is not probable that they would have made a very determined effort or gone far. In all, some 5,000 Union soldiers would end up falling here in this battlefield, and this would be for no reason. There was no purpose for it. On May the 13th, the Union Army will abandon Laurel Hill and head east, and the Confederates will continue to follow. And if you look at the monument here, this is going to be the 6th Army Corps. It's General John Sedgwick. And this is where John Sedgwick and his men are going to endure some of the heaviest days of fighting here in Spotsylvania. And you can see here, as we take a look at it, it's got all of his, where he makes captain, first lieutenant. And this is going to be put here to commemorate the spot where Major General John Sedgwick would command the 6th Army Corps. And he's going to be killed in action here on the morning of the 9th of May, 1864. So this is where General John Sedgwick is actually going to be killed. So yeah, pretty cool to be here in Spotsylvania for the first time ever and to check it out for ourselves. And this is depicting where General John Sedgwick is going to die. And he's going to die here, May 9th, 1864. He's going to be seated at his headquarters, which is just going to be a few feet behind us in this position here through this wood line. And he's going to notice confusion among some of his troops at the front. Ignoring earlier warnings of danger, he walks over to somewhere around this spot to kind of sort things out. And when he arrives here, a sharpshooter is going to take aim, and it's going to cause a young private at his side to drop to the ground in fear. Now, Sedgwick is going to gently talk to the man here. He's going to say, they couldn't hit an elephant at this distance. Well, as luck would have it, a second shot rings out, and apparently they could hit an elephant at that distance because Sedgwick is going to be hit. There's going to be a sickening thud, and he's going to pitch to the ground, and blood is going to be gushing from a hole just below his left eye. And he is going to become the highest ranking Union general officer to be killed in the American Civil War. And in this spot is where General John Sedgwick is going to take that shot from the sharpshooter. So pretty neat to see this spot for ourselves. So again, we're kind of pressed for time, but I just want to point out these trenches here on the Spotsylvania battlefield. These are the federal trenches, and this is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, and you could correct me in the comment section below if I am, this is Wright's Corps positions here on the battlefield. And we're just kind of driving through. I'm showing you some positions. The park is really close to closing. And of course, we finished up with our ECW duties today. And so we're taking a quick trip because, well, we are not going to be able to see it tomorrow. And this is going to be the area of the Woods Road that's going to be used by Upton at the time of the battle. And you can see the federal trenches are going to extend through the roadside here. And I'm not, I mean, you guys can ask me, but I'm not 100% sure of how much of these earthworks are rebuilt, how much of them are original. I really can't answer that. All I can tell you is this is the federal positions of these works as you're driving in on the main road here at Spotsylvania National Military Park. And it gives you an idea of where these federal positions were in transition to the Confederate forces that they were going to be opposing on the other side of the field. This is what has become known as the Bloody Angle. Now, I wish I had a heck of a lot more time here, but I do not. But we are just going to show it to you. This gives you a reason to come here and visit it for yourself. And this is going to be also called the Mule Shoe Salient here on the battlefield at the Bloody Angle. And it's going to be about 150 yards ahead of us where the Bloody Angle is actually going to be. And it's perhaps the most hallowed site on any Civil War battlefield. It's a small bend in the Confederate works within the much larger Mule Shoe Salient here. And it had a huge outward bulge in the center of General Robert E. Lee's 6-mile-long defensive line. Now here at this spot for 22 hours on May the 12th and 13th, combat would rage. Confederate troops would create this mule shoe on the right, or on the night rather, of May the 8th, 1864. And they would attempt to weave together two lines of earthworks that would run at right angles from one another. And you can have an example of this here. They're doing some work again. So just don't mind the wet paint outer things here, so we're not going to touch it. But this is going to run at right angles for one another. Now, Lee is going to recognize that this was an inherently weak position. It was subject to converging fire from many directions. So that means that fire could come from multiple directions and cut his men down basically like weeds. Now, to bolster this line, he would construct stout trenches and fortify them with upwards of 30 cannon. And even so, the salient remained his most vulnerable point. This was a fact that was demonstrated bloodily on May the 12th, 1864. And we're going to take I can't help myself, so we're going to take a little hike here along this mule shoe salient, if I could get the words out. And we're going to see if we can't catch just a quick glimpse of this bloody angle position. Now, here in this portion of the battlefield, there will be some hand-to-hand fighting take place. It is going to be outright hell and desperation here. And the men who would fight in this sector of this battlefield are going to remember this. And this is probably going to stand as one of the most remembered places of the American Civil War. And these interpretive plaques here are going to highlight this attack on the mule shoe. Now, like Lee, Grant had recognized that the mule shoe's weakness here, and he would make plans to exploit it. On May the 12th, just after dawn, 20,000 men up under General Winfield Scott Hancock, the 2nd Corps General, would storm across this field in front of us that you're looking at right now. He would storm across it left from right, and he would sweep over the Confederate works. He would capture 3,000 men and 20 cannons. It is one of the most successful Union attacks of the entire American Civil War. Now, capture of this mule shoe would nearly cut the Army of Northern Virginia directly in two. It would threaten its very existence. Lee counterattacked in a desperate attempt to regain the lost ground that he had lost here to General Winfield Scott Hancock. Now, to buy time to build a new line close to 1,000 yards behind the outer line, Lee would order it to be built about the 1,000 yards behind it to help strengthen this position a little bit. Now, for the rest of the day, both generals funneled every available man that they had in their possession to this salient. Grant fought to win, Lee fought to survive. That was what was said to be the turning point of the war. Grant would fight a battle to win it. Lee would fight it just to get out of the battle at this point and be able to survive to fight another day. The result was the most violent, sustained combat to ever take place in American history. Corporal John Haley of the 17th Maine Volunteers would say, every Confederate realized the desperate situation, and every Union soldier knew what was involved. For a time, every soldier was a friend. The attack was fierce, the resistance fanatical. And then this bloody angle is going to become a big, crowded ravine. Now, fighting at this Muleshoe salient would focus on the slight turn in the Confederate earthworks, and this would occur in our right front, right in this direction. Now, this is known as the Bloody Angle. The angle will occupy a small knoll that commanded adjacent parts of the Confederate line. Whoever controlled that knoll would control this salient. For 22 hours, Union and Confederate soldiers would fight for possession of this angle. They would fire across the works, engage one another in grim hand-to-hand combat. And they will fight with fists, rocks, their rifles, their bayonets, whatever they could get a hold to. If they had a stick, they would fight each other with a stick. It didn't matter. They were engaged in heavy fighting here. Now, during this battle, Union soldiers took cover in the ravine right in front of us, and time and again, they would rush forward to attack the angle, only to be beaten back each time. The Confederacy here is giving up a stout resistance to Union attacks. With each repulse, they left the ground between the ravine and angle strewn with hundreds of wounded and dying men, men groaning, men yelling for their mothers, men with missing arms, legs. It was an outright scene of ravaged warfare here. Bodies will pile up sometimes 3 to 4, even 5 foot deep, forming what one man described as a perfect rampart of the dead. They would literally build earthworks from the dead here. By day's end, up to 17,000 men were killed, wounded, or captured. Most in this area that we're now looking at. Private David Holt of the 16th Mississippi said the hill dropped abruptly to branch a short ways in front of the breastworks. The Yanks could come up behind the hill and have a short distance to charge in the open. They massed under the protection of the hill and made a rush at us over our own dead and wounded. So could you imagine being here in this field right to my side where I'm walking now? And you can, if you walk this place, I say this time and time again on every episode here on the channel where I'm on the battlefield, that you want to be on the battlefield to do one thing, and that is to read the terrain of the battlefield. That's going to give you probably the most information about a battle that you could ever gain is walking the field yourself. Where I'm standing right now, I can see where this line drops into a ravine right here in this location. I could clearly see that ravine. I could see what these Union soldiers were up against in 1864. And if you listen close, you could probably almost hear the moans and groans of the men who are fighting here. It is truly a cool experience to read about a battlefield for most of your life and then finally stand on it once you have an understanding of men like the Ohio men who charged across this place. And then you're able to actually see the battlefield for yourself. And if you look behind me, you could clearly see the ravine just beyond sight of the Ohio monument here behind my shoulder. And just to stand here is such a cool experience because I've wanted to stand here for a very long time, like every battlefield I go to almost. But these are the men of the Ohio whose names are etched right here behind me, who will fall on this piece of ground. And I'm gonna turn you around and let's walk the battlefield for a minute together here. So the information I give in these videos, really in a nutshell, is what you're going to find on the plaques as here. Some things I have read and researched for myself, a lot of it I have, but you have to condense it down. I can't give you the whole history here. I just don't have enough time in a video to do that. But right now I'm standing in the middle of this ravine, and I can imagine being a Union soldier. And after enduring what I've just endured and to march here, I'm charging down in this ravine, making a charge up to the top of this hill, this knoll, out of this ravine, which is very steep. The camera's not going to do it justice. But as I come to the top here, I'm going to be greeted by some more monuments. Let's check them out. So we're standing now close to the angle, and these are going to be the monuments to some of the Union men here. You just saw Ohio. This is going to be the 49th New York Volunteers. Really cool to see this. And then right in front of me, you're going to have the 15th Regiment of the New Jersey Volunteers. Pretty neat. So I'm gonna make my way down a little bit here. You can see the angle in front of me, but this is giving you another viewpoint of what these Union men saw as they would charge these earthworks right in front of me. This was the terrain they had to fight with. Now, standing here, up until this point, Kennesaw was one of the best battlefields I've ever been as far as reading the terrain. But I will tell you right now, this spot right now on this battlefield is my new favorite because you could clearly see everything I have read about up until this point. I could clearly see everything I have read about to this point of me visiting today. I could see the ravine for myself. I could see how just bad this terrain actually is. You can imagine the thousands of men who's going to fall right here in this location, along these works, out in front of these works. And wow, it's a really cool, surreal experience to be here. And I'm so glad I took just a few moments to walk out here because this is one of the coolest sights I've seen on any battlefield I've visited so far. So this is kind of depicting here on this plaque the toughest fight yet. This is going to be a drawing from Alfred Wald, who's going to sketch Union soldiers near this spot under fire on May the 12th, 64. And Lee's counterattacks had driven the Union troops out of the Mule Shoe, and here they are shown under cover on the outside of Confederate trenches. And his perspective was just a few feet from where we are now standing. So you can actually look at this drawing that he has here, and then look up and see this exact same depiction. It is the most immediate depiction of the fighting near the Bloody Angle on that day. Wald labeled this sketch the toughest fight yet. And in this image, he's going to show that fighting is going to rage most intensely to the right, where white smoke marks what would become known as the Bloody Angle. And amid the smoke, there will be a battle-scarred oak 22 inches in diameter, which will fall later in the day. And that oak tree, you can see part of it at the Smithsonian now. It was cut down purely by fire. And it was 22 inches in diameter, cut down by the fire of these rifles. And you can see the Union troops huddle up in the Confederate works amidst the carnage of earlier that day. And we're going to cross a little bridge here. We're going to make our way back to the car. I want to go further, but I really don't have the time to. If, you know, I don't want to wind up locked in Spotsylvania. And I want to hit another few locations if I can. But this is pretty cool to be here and see this place for myself, finally. And you can just imagine a tree like this being cut down with just small arms fire. Absolutely nuts. And we're now standing in the area of the Bloody Angle. So you can see your plaques here. As a matter of fact, here's that tree in the Smithsonian. That is how bad this 22 hours of fighting was in this position. And I'm here by myself. There's more light on camera than it is actually here in person. But it is eerie. It is quiet. I'm the only one here. And wow. Surreal feeling to have this place at the end of a long day to yourself. I've been learning about this place for most of the day. And then at the end of the day, after experiencing the Emergent Civil War Symposium, I'm standing in Spotsylvania, finishing up one of the best weekends I've had probably in my entire life. So pretty cool. It doesn't get much cooler than this at all, to be standing here in this location. This is awesome. All right, so it is dusk, which means one thing. I'm overstaying my welcome here in Spotsylvania. So I'm going to get out of here. There's a lot more to see here in Spotsylvania. It's not just the last two spots I showed you. So come see it for yourself. And I will be back here as well. Till next time, guys, don't forget, visit the American Battlefield Trust, American Civil War UK, Evan Portman, Project Past, Emerging Civil War, and we will see you on the next episode. Until then, keep preserving history and stay safe and go out on the battlefield for yourself. See you soon.